who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, and he would really like to come, but that didn't mean he couldn't actually send some comments, and so I will read his dispatch. Tucker was a museum man, and so was I. In the mid-1960s, when I met him for the first time, he was in charge of the Department of Mollusks at the Philadelphia Academy. I was then a curator in the mollusca section at the Natural History Museum in London, which is where we met. Through his writings, I recognized Tucker as a man of distinction in his chosen field, but meeting him face to face changed my perception of him. The way he dressed, the way he moved, and especially the way he talked made him seem somewhat exotic. Unlike other museum men I had met, to be honest, I didn't know what to make of him. Later, when I got to know him better, I realized he was only completely himself in his natural environment, which was the USA. He was friendly enough, but he also seemed to be a little wary of me, as to some extent I was of him. The mutual wariness was understandable because we each had produced a number of books popularizing the shell world. In other words, we were rivals. Our writing styles differed, but our subject matter did not. There was a distinct possibility one of us could spend much time and effort on a pet project and find that the other one had done likewise. Indeed, to a small extent, that had already happened. In 1971, Hamlin published a paperback by me entitled Shells, illustrated with watercolor drawings. This is on the left. In 1976, Bantam Books published a paperback by Tucker with the same title, but illustrated with color photos. The two books were almost identical in size and number of pages and were clearly aimed at the same kind of readership. During one of our meetings, I think it may have been in an early COA convention, we agreed that it could benefit us both to consider joint authorship, should a major project be proposed to either one of us. 2 or 3 years later, I received such a proposal from Dutton's. The publisher was interested in an identification manual on the lines of my collector's encyclopedia of shells, but larger and more comprehensive. I discussed this project with Tucker, and he willingly agreed to collaborate with me to produce what was certain to be a substantial publication. We shared the workload and visited museums and private collectors in the USA, locating and photographing thousands of shells. Common, rare, I would contribute additional material from sources in the UK. The foibles of curators and private collectors complicated our work sometimes, but we had to be philosophical about this. For instance, when we visited Dick Petit to photograph his collection of Cancellarity, we were late finishing. Now, I kid you not, because it's kind of ironic. We're not setting up a trend here. Anyway, so he invited us to stay overnight. By this time, Tucker and I were more than ready for bed. Dick calmly, God, I wish I had a picture of this. Dick then calmly informed us that there was only one spare bed available. We had no option to share it. I now have the dubious distinction of having slept with Tucker Abbott. Long before the project was completed, Tucker had virtually taken over what had originally been my book. With characteristic generosity, however, he allowed me to end it by letting me compile the index. Which, of course, before computers, took me at least 6 weeks. We disagreed over the title, and he was reluctant to adopt the word compendium, which I had proposed, but I was adamant and he relented. Unsurprisingly, he adopted it later for his own magnum opus on land snails. In 1982, I was even less surprised to discover that the book I had been invited to write was the work of Abbott and Dance, in that order. But I had no complaints, because he did more than his fair share of work on the compendium and negotiated everything with the publisher too. I'm content to have shared my book with Tucker, but if I was still around, if he was still around, I would think twice before sharing a bed with him again. Now I have a few little snippets